started with this month's chamber chat. We have Shelly Rose, the Vice President of Human Resources at First National Bank, is going to speak to us today about employee retention. Thanks, Shelly.
Thanks, you guys. Well, I appreciate you inviting me here to talk on this subject. It's one that is near and dear. I always like to talk about our people, because if we don't hold on to our people, we don't have a business. You have to have them in order for your business to run. And so understanding their needs, their wants, what you can do to help them feel like this is a fulfilling place for them is really important. I'll try not to wander too far. A couple of things that were kind of in the blast about that we're going to talk about how we keep our team. Oh, I get my mouth going right this morning. More coffee is apparently needed. But how do we keep our team? What does our team want? How do we encourage our team? And then how do we use our team to recruit new team members? They're your best asset there. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Okay. Wages and benefits. We've heard a lot about this over the years. Well, people don't really work for wages and benefits, but they do. Because if they're not there, they're going to leave. So while it may not be the thing that keeps them there, keeps them excited, keeps them motivated, if it's not there, they're going to go. So you've got to have some of the basic wages and benefits in place. You have to have a competitive wage structure. You got to have those standard benefits, health insurance, vision, medical, dental, paid time off, retirement plans. Those are all a baseline. People don't necessarily stay for those or don't necessarily leave for those, but if you don't have them, they don't stay. Okay, so it's kind of like your base that you're starting with. You have to have those things in place. You have to have a way for them to advance, to improve, to train, to grow within the business. You also want to make sure that when you're looking at these, that they truly are based for your industry, because that does vary by industry, okay, depending upon where you're at. If you're in oil and gas, your wages, your benefits, those types of things are way different than if you're in retail. Okay, a benefit in retail is just having medical insurance. You may pay an arm and a leg for it, but it's just having it in retail. In oil and gas, that better be almost free. Okay, so you have to look at your industry that you're in and make sure that you are staying within your industry with these. Otherwise, you're going to lose them to a competitor. That's just the nature of how it works, because these are the base. Got to have these in place. You know, understanding whether or not your wages and benefits are competitive is important. So whether you use a survey, whether you use the government sites that are out there that have different wage analysis on them, you want to look at that and make sure that it's competitive. And there's a lot of free options out there that you can look at. Drive down 59 and look at the "we're hiring" signs. Are they starting them at 15 bucks an hour, 16 bucks an hour? Subway's starting at $15 an hour. If Subway's starting at $15 an hour and I'm only offering 14, I'm gonna have trouble finding somebody. You know, depending upon what the position is. So there's a lot of free ways to get that information. You can also pay for surveys, compensation surveys, to look at your particular industry if you want to get that far into it. And ask around. Ask your employees. They know what other people are making. You know, people talk about that kind of thing. So you want to make sure that you're competitive with your wages. Now, you don't have to be the leader, but you do want to make sure that you're paying enough. You know, likewise with your medical, your dental, your vision, you want to make sure that you're providing enough coverage, that they find a value in it. If your medical insurance costs 10 grand a year, you want to make sure there's at least 10 grand coverage that they're going to be getting for it. You know, whether it's their preventative care, wellness care, those types of things. You want to make sure you have that baseline set up. Time off. Our employees are going to take time off the first year they're hired. It makes sense to have some time available for them to utilize during that. They're going to get sick. They're going to have someone they got to go see. They're going to have a wedding. Something always happens in that first year. So offering them some time off in that first year is kind of a win for you because they go, oh, well, that's really a perk that I get to have some time off that first year. It really doesn't cost you that much when you look at the big picture. If you're engaging them more to keep them, that's more important than a few $100 or even $1,000 in time off pay. Whether you call it PTO, whether you call it sick time, whether you call it vacation time, that piece doesn't matter, but they want to know they have time off. That's very important to people. When you're looking at some of those other perks and bonuses and things that are not always clear, it's important to do a total comp statement every year. As an employer, you're paying half their Social Security, you're paying half their Medicare. They don't see that unless you lay it out for them. They don't see what the cost it is for them to take vacation is to you. Because there's no work being performed for that, but yet you're paying them. So if you do a total compensation statement where you lay out for them what you're paying for them on their behalf for medical benefits, what you're paying on their behalf for Social Security, Medicare, things like that, they get a true picture of what they have for wages and benefits. So total comp statements are really helpful in that aspect, so that they can really see what they are earning. And again, we're just talking about the baseline here. This is what you have to have in order to keep them. And I got to look at my notes so that I make sure I don't forget things. Okay, so when you're talking about the benefits, the other thing you want to talk about is what are your goals for benefits? Is it to improve your employees' health and well-being? Is it retention? You know, what are those types of things? And sometimes you can get really creative with benefits at really low cost. It can be a half your cost or a minimum cost to you. So say you have a lot of your team members that have pets. They're very important to them. Maybe you offer pet insurance. It's a perk. Very low cost. They're going to pay for the majority of it. You can offer pet insurance. You can offer AFLAC. If you have an older workforce, that's an opportunity there. Usually very low cost to you. You could offer life insurances or additional life insurances that again could be mostly a pass-through cost. You can offer financial planning. Okay, maybe you can't do a 401k plan with your organization because you're just not big enough. So instead, bring in a financial planner. That won't cost you anything. There are tons of them here in town that will do that for free. I'm going to talk to your employees about financial planning, how to get ready for retirement, how they could set up individual retirement accounts instead of having a 401k, those types of things. Again, those are perks and benefits to help your employees feel valued. They're that baseline. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways. You could offer tuition reimbursement or tuition loan assistance, and they've got student loans they're working on. You know, maybe if they're making a payment, you're giving them $10 towards it, something like that. These things don't have to necessarily be expensive to be a perk to someone, but you have to know what your team wants. You know, if you're offering loan assistance for student loans and nobody in your organization went to school, that's not going to be helpful for them. So know what your team members want there for benefits. It's important. There, that computer. Okay. Maybe. Okay, we'll walk over here a minute. All right. So that next question, once you have the baseline in place, these are the soft things that they want. Okay. These are the things that are really important to them. You have to engage with your team on a regular basis. Talk to them. Sit down and have coffee with them. One of my famous things that I say, and sometimes my managers get tired of me saying it, is, did you have pie with them? You guys seen Men in Black? It's an awesome scene, having pie. Okay, but it works. Sit down and have pie with them. You know, talk to them. Doesn't necessarily have to be all work, but you'd be surprised what comes of that. You just got to engage with them regularly. They need to know that what they do means something. If you truly want your people to engage and stay, they got to know what they're doing means something. What's your mission? What's your values? Where are you headed with the company? And that culture. What is your culture? Truly, what is it? As managers, as business owners, we don't always know. We think we know. And then we get out there and talk to people and we realize, oh, no, that's really not it. So you need to understand what your culture truly is. And if you're engaging with them regularly, if you're having pie, you'll start to understand what that is. They want flexibility. Flexibility is key anymore. People want to know that if I need to go to my kids' art show or their field trip, that I can work my schedule around and make that work. Flexibility is really important. If I need to go take care of my folks, I can run and do that. You know, do I have to work from 8 to 5 or can I work from 9 to 6? Can I work from 5 to whatever that works out to be? Obviously too early for me. Communication. Okay. If any of y'all figure this one out, we're going to patent it. We're going to make millions. All right. Because it's too much communication, too little communication. It's not often enough, but communication, they want communication. But how your team wants communication, that's what's important. Respect, that's easy. We can all give respect with no cost. You know, just respecting someone for being different, respecting them for thinking a different way. Time, as I said earlier, people need time off. It's important to them. It really is. And then empathy, understanding, if they're going through something, being able to listen and listen with empathy, not with a listen, you know, understanding and hearing it from them. What's going on in their life? Not that you have to be their counselor, but with empathy and understanding that, okay, hey, it sounds like you're going to need some time off coming up. Let's figure that out. Let's figure out how that's going to work. You know, and just that you're there to reassure them that they don't have to worry about their job at the same time that they're worrying about this other issue can be very helpful. It goes a long way. Authority and freedom. That's a big one as well. They need to have enough authority to make decisions in their role. They can't have to come to you to order sticky notes. Okay. They have to have enough authority to be able to do their job and make the decisions that their job requires. And enough freedom to be able to do that, which can be difficult for us. Sometimes we want to hold everything and make sure it all gets done right. You're gonna do everything then too. That's how that works. You end up doing it all as well. This is really important. People stay or leave due to how they feel they're treated, not how they're actually treated. It's their perception. Perception is 100% reality for your team members. It just is. You can't get around that. What they believe is happening for them is what is really happening. Gotta look at my notes again to make sure I don't forget anything. I knew I had a good note on there. Let's look at this because if I don't, I'll mess it up. So there's a lot of engagement studies out there. And one of the things that they all will point to is that a positive relationship with their direct manager or supervisor is what is most important to someone who is working. Gallup has 12 core links, okay? And those, you guys heard of Gallup? You know what I'm talking about when I say Gallup? Yeah, the polling industry. They do specific ones for industries to decide whether or not their employees are engaged or not. Been doing it for a long time. So they have 12 things, and within those are what the employee gets. So do they have clear expectations? Do they know what they need to do? What are they getting? What are their outcomes that they're getting? What they give, so their individual contributions, whether they fit. And that fit is based on the mission, the values. It's also based on their coworkers. Do they fit in with their coworker group? All right. It doesn't mean you have to hire everybody the same, because you don't want to do that. You want to have lots of diversity, but they want to know that they fit. And then whether or not they have the opportunity to grow. Those are some of the things out of Gallup that they say are critical to that engagement factor. Again, this is about perceptions. How do they feel they're being treated? You know, how do they understand their job? Do they have those clear expectations? And sometimes that's not the same as how we think we're treating them. You know, those are different things. We're going to talk a little bit more here about this piece. Do you know where your company is going? Do you have a mission? Do you have a vision? Do you have core values? Even if you're a small company, you want to make sure you're clear on what you're doing and where you're going. So whether you're small or you're large, you want to have these in place. What is it that I want my company to do? Okay. What is your vision? What are your core values? And that needs to be communicated all throughout the organization. And not once a year at your annual meeting. It's got to be weekly, monthly, quarterly, in your day-to-day interaction. It all has to be part of that. So one of our core values at First National is community first. That's an easy one for me to talk about. I start talking about it at the recruiting process because I want someone to know from the beginning what their expectations are going to be. I talk about our mission, I talk about our values, I talk about our core values. So in that interview process, I'm talking about one of the benefits we offer. We pay 16 hours of community service every year, and we expect everyone to do 16 hours of community service every year. That is a core value of our organization, is that community is first. And you have to make that connection for them as well, that you're doing this because this is our core value. Now, I talk about the fact that last year we did over 2,000 hours of community service. That's a lot. I say that's a full-time job that as a bank, we paid for people to do community service, as if we had one person out there. I talk about that in that interviewing process because I want them to understand how important that is to us as a bank. I talk about our other core values, about customer centric, and the fact that we are going to build exceptional bankers. We have local expertise, all those things I talk about all throughout the interview process. Those are part of the expectations of our organization, and that helps them from the beginning to feel engaged. I'm not going to say, okay, we're doing interviewing from 2 to 5. If you can't make it, sorry. What does that tell my candidate? It happens a lot. It happens a lot. That tells the candidate, you're a number to me. You're not important to me. So if you start your process with your team member that way, that's going to follow them through into your organization, and they are not going to feel important because you're going to reinforce that throughout. Okay. So it's important to start that process in recruiting, to start talking about what our company does, what we want to provide, what are those core values. If you start it there and you do really well at bringing it all the way through to the onboarding, which is the next piece, again, you talk about it when you bring them on board. What's our purpose? What are we doing? And then you talk about it in those first months. Again, you connect back with them as you're checking in to see how they're doing. How are we doing with our training? Well, the reason we do this training is because we want to build exceptional bankers. Again, you've got to connect it. You always have to connect it for them. Don't assume they can make the connection. Some will, some won't. So you want to make sure that you're clear in your communication. Going back to that, we could make $1 million if we could figure communication out. But you want to make sure you're clear in that because you're talking to them and you're saying, you know, the reason we did this is because we want this to happen. We want to make sure we're fulfilling this part of our vision and our mission. Now, those are important things. So once you bring them on board and you get to that onboarding, those first few months, they're always excited. Everybody's excited the first few months, right? Their engagement's really high. They're like, yes, I got a new job. I'm so excited. Everything's peachy. Everything's wonderful. And then about 6 months, they're like, wow, not sure I can do this. That's normal. That's typical. And again, re-engaging with them. If you're talking to them, if you're going and having pie, if you're having those check-in conversations, whatever it is, you're going to know that. And you can help lift them back up. That's a normal cycle. So you've got to do that re-energizing. And again, talk to them about what we're doing this month. We have team meetings, and in team meetings every month, we talk about one of our goals, at least one of our goals, if not all of them, that we have for the organization that year. And we talk about some of these core values. We're going to connect our goals to it. We're going to connect what we've done the previous month that we're recapping. We're going to connect what's coming up. Because the more connection you can make, the more valued they feel. And the more like they're contributing to that purpose and to that mission. And I better check my notes again because I'm really good at skipping forward. All right, so that's the side of finding out what your team wants, making sure that you're connecting with what those wants are. And then we move into how do we encourage them? We've got the baseline of our wages and our benefits, making sure that we started with that bottom of the stack. Have we got competitive wages? Have we got competitive benefits? And then we move into talking to them about what's important to them, the things that they've got to have, the flexibility, the time off, feeling of purpose. Those things are all important, that next layer of that top side. Okay. Then you move into how do we encourage them? This is your toolbox. These are the things that you can pull out and use as you need to. Okay. So these are just a few things. There's a lot of different ways out there to encourage team members. Most important thing is to know what encourages them. If you have a team member that loves for you to stand up in front of the team meeting and go, good job, Mary, way to go. Do that part. And then if you have someone else where you're like, okay, there are all sorts. Okay. Make sure that you know what that team member wants, because the person that just wants a handshake off to the side, if you clap for them, they're gonna die. Never doing that again. Okay. Make sure you know what they want. So that encouragement has to be specific. These are a few ideas. Job enrichment, that doesn't mean that you have to move all over the place. It could mean that you just expand their role a little bit. Or maybe you let them help on a project, a really exciting project you're working on. There's all different ways to do job enrichment. It could mean sending them to training to know their job more. Okay. It could be working and partnering with somebody else in your organization to say, ooh, that's pretty neat. I didn't know that. Learn more about just the organization. Maybe it's sitting with you as the owner or a manager or an executive to see what you do for a day. It's pretty exciting to do those kinds of things for someone. We talked a little bit about strategic compensation before, about making sure that you're competitive. There's another component to that. You have to make sure that if you're putting an incentive in place, that you're incenting the right thing. Okay. So my brother has a hydrovac company, and I've helped him a lot over the years. And he decided he was going to put an incentive in place for his managers, that if they were out in the field, he was going to pay them extra for being out in the field. So what they do? They were in the field all the time. I'm like, you incented the wrong thing. I understand what you were trying to do, but you incented the wrong thing. All of a sudden, they're field guys, not managers anymore. So you got to make sure that you're incenting the right thing. If we're going to incent loan growth, we're going to give you a bonus for however many loans you're going to do. We need to make sure that we put in there the word quality loans that are going to be paid back, right? Otherwise, we're going to have a whole lot of loans and probably lose money overall, right? So you got to make sure that you're incenting the right thing. Okay, so you really want to think that through when you're looking at incentive programs. Performance management and accountability. It's always somewhat of a surprise to people when you tell them, if you don't get rid of that person, you are going to have the rest of your team disengage and leave, because you didn't take care of an issue. So that's the kind of the tough side of performance management. But during performance management, you also want to make sure that you are rewarding and telling those folks they're doing a good job, that they're doing a good job. But it's really important to hold people accountable. You have to set their expectations and then hold them accountable to those expectations. And if you have someone who is not meeting those expectations, you have to start walking down that road of, are you sure this is the best job for you? If sometimes it's just not a good fit. Sometimes, about maybe 1% to 2% of the time, it's someone who just really shouldn't work. But that's rare. Or someone who's, it's really rare that someone is not intending to do a good job. Over 90% of us come to work intending to do a good job. So that's why we have to set clear expectations and hold people accountable. Early in my career, I had a receptionist, and she was such a great person. I mean, she was really outgoing. She was really friendly at the receptionist desk. She was really wonderful. And they are. All right. That's okay. I'll go on with my story. I'll keep telling my story. Good. She was really good at greeting people. She was really good at engaging with them. She was really good about talking to them about weather or whatever it needed to be. She was great as the receptionist, right? But this particular receptionist role also required some data entry that needed to be almost 100% accurate. Because if there was a mistake there, it would take 2 to 3 days to correct it. She was horrible at that part. Nothing against her, she was horrible at that. It's not in her wheelhouse to be able to do that. And we tried. We tried checklists, we tried color coding, we tried everything we could think of because we loved her as a receptionist. But that piece of it was so important, and we didn't have enough people through our lobbying that piece overwhelmed the other one, and it wasn't a good fit for her. So we walked through the process, we talked with her, we worked with her. When we got to that final, this isn't gonna work, she's like, yeah, this isn't gonna work. I get it. I get it. She left, she went to work selling jewelry, man, she knocked it out of the park. She did really good at it. However, if we hadn't walked through that process with her, it wouldn't have been fair to her. She wouldn't have understood what her strengths were to know what she should do. You know, we could have easily, we were going through layoffs at that time, we could have easily just laid her off. But that wouldn't have helped her. It wouldn't have helped her know what her strengths are. She would have gone and got another job just like the one she had because that was her experience. And she would have failed again. So knowing what your individual strengths are, speaking to those strengths when you're doing the performance management is really what you want to do. Everybody's different and has different strengths. I can stand up here and do this. Lori's not going to unless she has to. I know, because she's sitting in the back of the room. With the front row attitude. I know. I love the front row attitude. But that's not necessarily something that she's comfortable doing, right? So work to people's strengths. That's what you need to do because everyone is different and has something else that they're good at. The other thing that brings to your workforce is people who don't get along because their strengths are opposite. You know, you got your guy that's got all the data, all of it. I mean, all of it. And then some extra, just in case you want some extra data. Got it all, right? All the data, got it all. And then you have your exec who has 5 minutes because I'm busy. I've got to get a decision made and I got to get things done. I don't have time to listen to all your data. So you have to help those people talk to each other because inadvertently, the exec is going to make that data person really mad, right? I've got 5 minutes. I need the bullet points, just the high points. I know you're all work and I trust you. That's the message it has to be conveyed. I know you've done a lot of work on this. I know you've got the data. I trust you. So just tell me the most important ones. And on the other side, the data guy's got to go, okay, I got to condense this down because if I take too long, they're going to check out on me. You know, so helping them talk to one another, again, that whole communication piece, it's critical. But that's part of performance management and accountability as well. Those things are important to have to make sure that you are encouraging yourself. If someone hates to hear about what they do bad, because then they get feeling like they're never going to win and I'm not going to do well. Yes, ma'am. It's all good. That's a really important piece, you know, to make sure that you're building them up when you're talking about performance management and accountability. And when you're doing that, people are more engaged and more likely to focus and get done what you want. Shared responsibility. You've got your notes in front of you, so I'll let you kind of look to those. Shared responsibility is kind of an interesting one. Wherever possible, share responsibility down your organizational chart. If it's possible for your middle managers to make decisions, have them make them. Share that responsibility down as low as you can. You know, if it's possible for my teller to make a decision about whether that endorsement is good or not, I want them to make that decision. want them to feel like they got a whole manager over every single time. Train them so that they know what a good decision is, that they can make that decision. In retail, can I make a decision to help a customer with a refund? Or do I have to call the manager over every time? Wherever you can, share that responsibility down as far as you can, because then they feel empowered in their job. That's an important thing. Also, when you're talking about the strategic goals for the organization, the more you talk with your team about it, you may know what you want, but you're just you. So if you can talk with your team about it and say, this is what I'm thinking, what do you guys see? Where do you see things going? You're going to get a broader perspective and a better decision, especially if you can talk to someone who's opposite of you and work through that, because they see things you don't see. Whenever I put together a team, I always try to get 4 people that are completely different. And the reason I do that is because then you get a much rounder decision that comes out of it. You have to facilitate conversation because it can get a little rough sometimes. That's the nature of it. We think differently. We behave differently. So it's important to take that responsibility and those projects and take it down as low as you can. The strategic decisions, same thing. You know, take that down as far as you can. Want to make sure that you can take that down as low as you can. Tools to do their jobs correctly. When someone doesn't have the right tool, they really feel handicapped. You got a guy out in the field who's using baling twine and duct tape. And I might have done that growing up on the ranch, but it's not the best approach, right? It's better to have the right tool. Know what you need and have it for them. They know what they need. If you're not sure what they need, ask them. Come on in. Ask them what they need. You know, they know what tools they want. They know what they're missing. They know how their job could be done better or different. You know, so it's really important to make sure they've got the right tools. Okay, now I'm nervous. My husband's he isn't scary. Leadership development is also a really good tool in your toolbox. Are you helping them understand how to be leaders, how to develop, how to grow? When you talk to someone, you say, hey, I see potential. I want to see you grow within our organization. Those are good conversations to have. All of a sudden, they feel like, oh, wow, they got a place for me here. That's important. They got a place for me here. And what are we going to do to help develop that? Are we going to look at some outside training? Are we going to look at some cross training? Are we going to look at some mentoring? What are we going to do to help develop that leader? Are we just going to have them sit with us? There's a lot of different ways to develop a leader within your organization. It's okay to have a group of leaders working together, even though they might not be managers. The more you develop your leaders within your organization, that's great. I bet you've all been in an organization where there was a leader who did not have a title, but everybody followed them. Sometimes it was good, sometimes not so much. You know? So if you're developing that leadership role with them, then you're developing it in a manner that supports the organization and doesn't support other things that can happen with natural leaders. Right. All right. There's a lot of different encouragement opportunities. Some of them are going to be formal, some of them are going to be informal, some of them are going to be just, they happen. Okay. So use those opportunities. I'm muted. Okay. Hopefully not too bad. Hopefully you can hear me. But there are a lot of different opportunities. They come about formally when you're talking about a performance review, when you're talking about when you sit down and do a coaching, when you're talking about goal setting, when you're talking about communication from your senior leaders. Those are all formal opportunities to encourage. Sometimes you're encouraging the whole group, sometimes you're encouraging the individual, but those are formal. Then there's a lot of informal opportunities, okay? The kind of ongoing things. At a company social event, how could you encourage an employee there? What do you think? Sure. Provide positive feedback during the function. Yeah. I'm gonna walk out screen, sorry. I can walk over here and say, you know, what I think. During social events, it doesn't have to be sit down and, you know, coaching sessions. Oh, we just that easy. I'm glad you're part of our organization. I'm glad you're here. Oh, what you did last week with that customer, that was awesome. You know, it could be just walking by and you notice something that they're doing. Say something then. Right then. Don't wait, because if you wait, then you've lost that window of opportunity. There are a lot of different ways that you can encourage a lot of different opportunities every day to do that. You want to make sure that you have all of these though. Don't lose sight of the formal opportunities, doing the informal ones. Okay. That annual check-in for performance review, as painful as it is for all of us, is really important because it goes back to those clear expectations and accountability. None of us like to write a performance review, either side. We don't want to write our side, we don't want to write our manager's side. We don't want to do it, right? But it's an important time because you've got to look back and celebrate what you did this last year. Because you just didn't come to work and sit like a log or you can still be there. You did things. Celebrate it. Celebrate what this last year did. What happened, what your results were, those kinds of things. You want to make sure you take all of the opportunities you can to encourage your staff. I can tell you right now, none of us do it enough. We're all too busy. It's hard to stop and take that moment and say, hey, you did a good job. It's hard to carve out time to go for coffee. Those things are all hard to do because we feel like we've got to get more done. That's in general how all of our business is, especially when we're short-staffed, right? It's even harder. Well, but if we don't take that time, we might be even more short-staffed. So you got to look at that and think through that and make sure that you're taking all the opportunities that you can. I'm going to go to that computer to change the slide. So there are 5 key factors that need to be there for your team member to feel like they're truly a part of your team. And these are those. I fit, I'm clear, I'm supported, I'm valued, and I'm inspired. When you reach this level with someone, that's when you get their discretionary effort. That's the extra 5 minutes that I'm going to spend working on this project instead of checking in on Facebook. You know, these are important. So you want to make sure that you have these factors and that you support them. All the things we've been talking about are leading up to getting your team member into these 5 things. And the I fit is not that we're all cookie cutter the same. The I fit is that I'm a part of this team and I feel like I have a contribution. Okay. The clear, that's accountability, expectations, those types of things. They're all really important. I have this wonderful quote. It's from Brady Wilson. He's part of the firm Juice Inc. They're part of the research behind best places to work. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of those, but there's a lot of the metro areas use the best places to work, and they work really hard to get on that list. And he's part of that research. And what he says is that when employees have a sense of purpose, significance, and security, when they feel that they belong to a group, yet have the freedom to work and advance individually, that equals true engagement. And that's when they really will put forth the discretionary effort to stay involved. All right, I got a top 10 list for you. These are my top 10. It might not be yours, but you can modify it however it works for you. But these are a top 10 tip list of what you can do in your organization. Good morning. It's an easy one. Good morning. How's it going? That's a really easy one. Call them by name. The right name. I've done that before. Sure you have too. Anyway, oh, I wish I could put that back in my mouth. What happens? You just fall on your sword and say, sorry, I can't believe I did that. You know, it happens. Get to know them. Let them know tidbits about you. Now, this is a dicey spot. When you're talking about yourself as the manager or as the owner or as the professional, and you're letting them know things about you, you want to make sure that you stay professional and appropriate. And you don't want to tell them about the weekend in Mexico. All right, you know, make sure you stay appropriate. But let them know things about you. Okay. Extreme proactive planning for unplanned absence. How do you extremely proactive plan for unplanned absence? Right? Cross-train. That's the way to do it. You're enriching jobs by cross-training. Someone said, oh, man, I'm feeling kind of crappy today. Let's see if you got some time off you can use. Just call the doctor. Get some aspirin. I got some Tylenol. It can be that simple. You know, man, I'm sorry you're not feeling good. Think you're gonna be able to be here tomorrow? You need to take tomorrow off. You know, that's what I mean by extreme proactive planning. My mom's not doing so good. I'm really worried about her. Man, let's talk about that. You know, she got some appointments coming up that you need to be there for. Let's get those on the calendar. You know, extreme proactive planning. I did have one that I'm not sure any of us could have planned for. An employee who came into me that morning and went, oh my gosh, my 16-year-old had a baby last night. I looked at her like, really? She's like, yeah, she didn't even know she was pregnant. I'm like, really? Okay, that might be, couldn't have maybe extreme planned on that one. But it happened. You know, they get surprised. I'm not quite sure how they got surprised in that instance. I'm not going there. But you want to make sure you plan as much as you can. You know, so then we talked about leave and those types of things to make sure that we have things covered. Encourage fun with work. You don't want it to be disruptive, but you want to have fun at work. Everybody wants to have fun at work. It's okay. It's okay to crack a joke. It's okay to play a prank. A mild prank. And I've seen a lot of offices shrink wrap over the years. Seen them filled with balloons. We have googly eyes all over our bank. If you're ever there, look farm there. It's kind of fun. There's googly eyes all over our bank. It's kind of fun. But it's a very small, non-disruptive little prank they pull on each other. And I'm just like, that's awesome. Have fun. Have some fun at work. Appropriate. Have some fun. A sense of humor from a manager and allowing individuality. You gotta be able to laugh at yourself as a manager. You gotta be able to be like, oh, wow, I stuck my foot in my mouth on that one, and be okay with it. You know, take your ego down a little bit and say, you know what, that's all right. We can have some fun. We can have some humor. And I can allow you to be you and you to be you. We don't have to all think the same. We don't have to all act the same. We have to figure out how to communicate through those things. Being a leader rather than a boss, you have to model the behavior from the top down. That's really important. Set up competition with another team. So this quarter, let's see, and the tellers or the RVs get more community service hours. Whoever gets more hours, the other team's gonna serve them. Come up with some fun ways to compete. Not to the point where it drives down your production, but that it drives up your production, whatever it is that you're looking to drive up. Have some fun competition between them. The next one, email the team the daily schedule or let them know where they can get a hold of you and what you're doing. As a manager, as a business owner, as a professional, you want to make sure your team knows where to find you. That's really important to them. And if they don't, they're like, oh, they're all goofing off. That's always their first thought. Always. They're all goofing off. Not that you're at a meeting, not that you're at a training, not that you're buried underneath some paperwork out on the site. They think you're goofing off. They can't get a hold of you. Well, they're never available when I need them. Okay, so if they know your schedule, if they know how to get a hold of you, you don't have those complaints. You take them completely out of the mix. It helps a lot. That's a big thing. We talked a little bit earlier about building leaders, about helping them understand what they mean to your organization. That's that career path knowledge. Where do I see you? Where are you going to fit? Well, I've got you pegged as I think you might be able to come up with being the next manager of this area. We're going to train you first. We're going to work with you. We're going to help you build the skills you need. Help them see where they're going. Don't assume that they can connect the dots in what you have planned for them. Talk to them about it. You also might find they have absolutely no interest. And then if you're trying to groom somebody and they're not interested, you got the wrong spot. Okay, it's somebody else. Or you might have the right spot and they need encouragement. But it's important so that they can see it. And then when it comes to your mission, your vision, and your core values, you have to model them and promote them. Like I said, it's an everyday thing. You have to talk with your team members about how they're contributing to that mission, how they're building that vision, and what's important. It's an all the time conversation. Now the fun part. We've got our team members. We've got them built up. We've got them helping us grow. We've got them exciting, engaged. We're keeping them. That's all about keeping them, right? The retention piece of it. How do we get more good team members? How do we use our current team to get more team members? It's actually a lot easier than you think. If you work somewhere that you love, you talk about it, right? Talk about it all the time. Talk about it to your friends, your neighbors, guys at the gas station. You talk about it. It's natural. It's absolutely natural for engaged employees. So start a referral program. Reward them for bringing those employees in. Doesn't necessarily have to be a ton. Maybe $200. Could be $500. Depending on how bad you need employees, could be 5,000. I mean, there's a lot of sign-on bonuses out there that are close to that right now. The advantages of using your team is instead of you looking for someone, now the whole company's looking for someone. You put your effort and multiply it out there by however many employees you have. It's really helpful. But don't just send them to the wolves. Give them some talking points about how to promote. Hey, if you see somebody that's giving great service that you'd like to work with, here's 3 things you could talk about our company about. Say, hey, you ever thought about coming to work for us? You know, give them some talking points so that they know what to say and don't just, hey, fill an application. Well, that's not really going to get somebody to work for us. You know what I love about working at the bank? I love that they're highly involved in the community. Man, I get to do so many community service things. It's fantastic. And they pay me to do it. Awesome. You know, they put the customer first. They build relationships. Highly important to them. Give them talking points to go recruit new people. And you have to have clear expectations. Remember all the way back at the beginning, clear expectations. So you've got to have that criteria to follow. Wrong computer. Back over here. These are some sample guidelines of some of the expectations that you can set. There are certain team members that just aren't going to be eligible. Obviously, your HR person shouldn't be eligible for a recruiting bonus or referral bonus. It just kind of goes against what you're trying to do there. They're already doing it. It's part of their job. Okay. You want to make sure that you're within a time frame. So maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 2 months, 3 months, what fits for your industry, that you're within a time frame when that referral came in, that you're paying your employee. Again, this is a small cost to bring in a good person. Someone who's going to fit with the team, someone who's got the same kind of ideals and values. Okay. You want to make sure you've got a process for it. You got a sheet to fill out or something so that you know that the first person who turned theirs in, because I hired Gail and man, she's a rock star and I have 10 people refer her. Which one do I pay? Establish that ahead of time as to who's going to get the referral bonus. Okay. And then also make sure they understand that it has to be somebody who's qualified. Your friend that works at the gas station cannot be our CFO. Not a good fit. I know they've counted money and they're good at counting money. That's not going to fit. Okay, they got to have the qualifications for the job. It's funny sometimes people will refer. Well, they need a job because they haven't had one for 10 years. I can appreciate that. However, might not be a fit for our organization. So you just want to make sure you've got some guidelines. You want to talk about when you're going to pay that referral bonus. My recommendation is always to wait until they've been there for like 90 days, 60 days or 90 days. 60 is kind of a little early still. But if they've been there 90 days, more than likely they're going to stay. And so you don't want to pay your bonus until they've been there 90 days or 60 days, whatever works for your organization. That's an important piece. That way, it's set up front. It's clear. I know what steps I've got to go through to refer somebody, and I know when I'm going to get paid and how I'm going to get paid. And then when I onboard that person, I always say, hey, make sure you tell Joe to take you to lunch in 3 months. They had a bonus off of you, you know? And that's a fun, easy way to spread that program further. Really? How do I do that? Well, you know, somebody who wants to work here. You know, it keeps the program spreading. There's a lot you can do in that onboarding process and a lot that you can do to help your team be recruiters and not just you. It's hard to find them all by ourselves. Everybody knows a different circle of friends, so tap into that. All right, that's all I've got. I stood up here and chattered away. This is me. I'm always willing to answer questions. Always willing to help folks out. So if you get back and you're like, I don't know what she said about this, just call me or email me. I'm more than happy to talk on the phone, answer questions, email.